Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith, and you're watching another episode in my series recapping and reviewing every single book in the Animorphs series. We're on week 2 of Animorphs August, where every week I'm posting a new review with the hope of inching ever closer towards the end of the series. Today we are talking about Animorphs 39, The Hidden. This is a Cassie book, which usually means emotional damage, and the fact that there's a Shakespeare reference on the cover, the quote, not the cow. This should be a good one, or at the very least, it's gonna be madness. We open in the barn with Cassie rescuing a mouse with a broken leg, because that's just the kind of Disney princess Cassie is. She remarks on how morphing into animals gives you a kind of perspective you just couldn't get at vet school, and I have to agree. But alas, she can't just use her morphing powers to help animals, she has to fight in a war as well. As ever, I'm going to skip her recap of said war so that we can just get on, because you can just watch the playlist. Cassie's mouse rescue mission is foiled when a helicopter flies overhead, spooking the mouse, which runs into the woods. She thinks nothing of it and continues to get on with her day until Eric the Chi emerges with typical android stealth. She doesn't notice him. You weren't supposed to, and neither were the controllers in the helicopter. We have a major problem, Cassie. It is time for a classic Eric plot drop, and Cassie is the only one in the barn, so she's the only one who hears it. No time to grab the others, Cassie's gonna have to relay the message. It would seem that the Yeerks have found a way to repair the Helmacron ship and are using the Helmacron's technology that allows them to detect morphing energy. Helmacrons were the tiny aliens that featured in book 24. Things are coming full circle at the moment. So the Yeerks have the ability to trap people who have morphed, which shouldn't be a problem because Cassie hasn't morphed, but oh no, the blue cube that exudes morphing energy is hidden in the barn. The ship's sensors aren't operating at full potential, but the Yeerks have managed to hone in on a weak signal from somewhere in this area. That would be the energy from the morphing cube. Eric's voice was muted as the helicopter did another flyby. They're making another pass. If we don't get that cube out of here. It is yet another, we need to hide the morphing technology cube from the Yeerks book. We've had a few of them. They keep turning up. Maybe it's time we destroy the cube. I'm just saying. So Eric explains the plan. They need to keep the cube moving and hide it from the Helmacron ship until they destroy the technology. At that point, Cassie's mum shows up saying she's going to the gardens. Cassie tags along because it's a good excuse to get out of the barn quickly. As they drive to the gardens, Cassie can see the helicopter flying over the woods, and there's also something of an erratic driver behind Cassie's mother, who is also something of an erratic driver, but they don't know if it's just some guy with road rage or if it is the Yeerks after the cube. In some ways it's unlikely to be the latter because the Yeerks would send a full-on army after the cube, not just some man in a car. She heads on into the gardens, trying to look nice and normal even though she's got a cube stuffed up her shirt, in the hope that the others will be waiting to meet her. The cube stuffed up the shirt is something that Rachel immediately comments on. The others are all there, they are indeed in seagull morph. Well, except for Tobias, but he's a bird all the time, so he doesn't need new morph. The helicopters, because there's more than one of them now, are circling ever closer, and there are men in suits who seem to be heading for Cassie. Like the smart gal that she is, Cassie doesn't run, she waits until they aren't looking and then she speed walks out of there. Tobias from above lets her know that while she's escaped for now, the helicopters are still tracking her, and they're going to relay the information to the besuited men on the ground. If the helicopter flies directly over her, they will spot Cassie and they'll figure out exactly what the Animorphs are about. Cassie sneaks around the side of a door, gets jabbed in the side by the handle of one of the trucks. We know how much it hurts to get a door handle in the side. Ouch. The most painful thing to happen in the series so far, I'm sure. As you can imagine, Cassie makes her way into said truck in order to hide, only to be greeted by the front cover animal, the buffalo. There, looming in front of me with its huge broad head held low and its massive curved horns, stood almost a ton of solid, muscled African Cape buffalo, aka the Widowmaker. Of course, at this moment the truck starts moving, being driven by controllers who are following the signal sent down by the helicopter. It's a whole farce. In the truck, things aren't going super well as the angry buffalo is beginning to get free of its ropes. How do you calm it down? Acquire the buffalo DNA, of course. They've been stopped at the gates of the gardens. Someone wants to inspect the contents of the truck. They're looking for someone holding the cube. Who is they? Why, it's everyone's favourite villain, Visser 3 and his troops. He opens the door and gets struck by 2 buffalo, almost literally, because Cassie's instincts kick in. Fury, no fear, fight to defend, fight the threat, protect the herd. They cause classic chaos with humans and controllers running around like headless chickens. Someone calls for the cops to come here to help them, which is revealed that they are not in fact at the gardens, but they are on some stretch of woods by the highway. Tobias gently thought speaks to Cassie to maybe get her instincts under control because they do need to find out whether she's left the box. The real buffalo escapes from the truck and goes straight for Chapman, which is very pleasing, and Cassie heads back towards the truck where she left the box, kicking Visser 3's limo as she goes. She grabs the cube out of the truck in her mouth and she runs into the woods following after the other buffalo. Zooming through the woods, Jake finally speaks to Cassie and lets her know that she is free to demorph. Apparently there still isn't a plan to get rid of the Helmacron technology for now, but Cassie has limited time left as a buffalo, so she demorphs. Just as she finishes, she hears another helicopter on the way. The Yeerks are back on the search. And now it gets weird. Cassie heads into a nearby clearing and there she sees the other buffalo, but things are, unusual. See, the Cape Buffalo stood there, but instead of a Cape Buffalo head and face was our assistant principal's, Chapman. Now, it's not what you think. Chapman doesn't have morphing powers. the buffalo does. The buffalo is half human and very confused, but generally having an okay time in the grass. And then the buffalo human stands up and it's all very confusing because it doesn't really know what it's doing with a human brain. It's only got buffalo brain. "We can't just leave it here," I said, watching as the buffer human took a first shaky step towards me. "But we can't take it with us," Tobias said. "No, we couldn't, not like this. But if I could get it to demorph back into its buffalo shape, then it would stop putting off so much morphing energy." How do you solve a problem like a half-human buffalo? Is a very different song. Cassie morphs to buffalo to see if the friend will follow her, but it doesn't really work. And the Yeeks are getting ever closer, so Cassie is forced to give up and morph to wolf, all the while emitting more and more morphing energy. One way or another, his life as a normal African Cape buffalo was completely over. As a creature morphing, he would draw the Helmacron sensors, and if he exceeded the 2-hour limit in morph, he'd become some kind of hideous nothlit, forever a mutant. Even if the Gardens found him, they wouldn't know what to do with him, and I knew I was leaving him to die. Didn't I say this one would involve no small amount of emotional damage? Cassie keeps running, her mind spinning on what they've done, but the helicopter's coming ever closer. She decides to demorph in order to limit the amount of morphing energy she and the cube are giving off. She makes her way on a circuitous route through the forest trying to throw off the sensors, but the helicopter keeps on coming. She has to find a way to break the sensors, and just as it all feels hopeless, the helicopter veers off in another direction, and a whole bunch of Animorph birds land around her. Cassie tells a classic lie and says to Jake that she's absolutely fine, even though we all know she really isn't. Jake ignores it for now, however, letting them know that Eric has managed to set up a decoy morphing energy generator on the other side of the forest to lure the Yeeks away. It won't work forever, but it will work for now. Cassie wants them all to morph to wolf and then head for the cave where she hid with Karen that one time. Tobias, who witnessed it, fills them all in on the human buffalo issue, and they realise there is another flaw to the just leave him behind plan, which is that if he can get to a point where he can talk, he saw Cassie demorph to human. He knows their secrets and could reveal them to the Yeeks. They make their way to the cave, the constant presence of the Yeek helicopter making them all a little bit stressed, but they do manage to get a bit of rest. Time to formulate a plan. They do need to deal with the ship's sensors, and they also need to deal with the buffer human. Rachel argues for just killing it, but Cassie argues that it now has human DNA, so that would go against the Animorph code. Complicated ethical discussion ensues. Rachel really sums up my feelings I had after 2 years of ethics A-level. I hate these kind of questions. There are never any concrete answers. Jake tries to keep everyone in check. Their focus right now needs to be the sensors. There's no good doing anything until they deal with those. If they can't get into the helicopter, maybe they could bring the whole helicopter down, destroying them. Jake's plan is to show the Yeeks the morphing cube and then trap them. But they'll be expecting a trap, so let's do a slightly different trap from the one they might be expecting. The guys in the helicopter are hunting the source of the morphing energy. We're it. We let the cube be spotted and then take off. While they're trying to run us to the ground, one of us hangs back and ambushes them. I mean, it is a plan. A plan indeed is what it is. Marco suggests they need to go the cartoon route and effectively drop an anvil on the helicopter over the ocean. It's a plan. A plan is what it is. But as they decide on whatever that is, Tobias lets them know that there are Taxons coming. Cassie gets into Buffalo Morph. Is this finally Cassie getting a better battle morph than just Wolf? We'll see if it gets used in the future. They make it out of the cave, meet the Taxons, they squash and generally deal with the Taxons. They aren't too difficult to handle in battle morph. But there are Hawk-Bajir as well. It's a full Animorph battle, screaming, screeching, all the above. They are, frankly, a little bit outnumbered in this instance until the buffer human emerges, thankfully not yet snatched by the Yeeks, and helps them out in the battle. Those herd instincts really kicking in. They get enthused by this new member of the group and they manage to thoroughly thrash the Yeeks. After the battle, with everyone a little bit worse for wear, they decide to demorph, which the buffalo sees and really wants to copy. And as they're discussing how weird that is, it also tries to learn to talk. Not good. Not great. The helicopter starts coming back as the game of cat and mouse continues. No choice but to morph again, so Cassie goes to wolf and the buffer human mimics her going back to buffalo. Jake leads them out of the clearing, but Cassie doesn't want to leave their new creation. Are they responsible for it? It's hard to say. I mean, since the buffalo isn't in morph now, it might be able to not draw the Yeek sensors and get away. With that in mind, Cassie reluctantly heads after the others. The helicopter's chasing, and so is the buffalo. The Yeeks are in pursuit. There are also bug fighters. It's escalating peril to the max. As Taxons burst out of the trees, Cassie is forced to drop the cube in order to deal with them, which Jake is less than pleased with, but it was a life or death situation. Then there's more Hawk-Bajir and the sound of Jake crying out in pain. More Animorph battle with the Animorphs and their buffer pal, except that now there are also Draken beams from the blade ships to contend with. They run, and they're about to get to the edge of the forest, where they will get to the beach, where there will doubtless be a whole load of controllers. How best to get them, the blue box, and the buffalo, maybe, across the road without being spotted by the Yeeks. The plan that they come up with is yet another ingenious one, obviously. Most of them will morph to flies and get over the road. One of them will wait behind and throw the cube across the road so the others can pick it up. Yep, that's what we're dealing with here. It's a lot of morphing energy in one location, but they don't have many choices, so they've just got to go with it. It was a simple plan, and it should have been easy. I should have known better. Another great tagline for the series as a whole. Marco's going to be the one to toss the cube, so everyone else gets to fly morph and across the road. The morphing fatigue is absolutely setting in. They shouldn't do this many morphs in a row, but they've got no other choice. More patrol cars are coming, honing in on the morphing energy. Just as the cube starts flying towards their hiding place, things start to go wrong again as the buffalo shows up. No winning in this one. If the buffalo was killed in battle, we'd be safe, and our hands, my hands, wouldn't be stained with blood containing human DNA. But the Yeeks aren't likely to let a suspected Andalite bandit die, so they'll probably try and keep the buffalo alive, and then this whole thing goes wrong again. How do they deal with this when if they poke their heads out, they run the risk of being spotted by the helicopter? The helicopter from which is emerging everyone's favourite villain, Visser 3. He tries to interrogate the buffalo, which doesn't go well for obvious reasons, but makes him quite cross. Then, as the Visser turns his eyes on the Animorphs, who aren't presumably not very well hidden, they realise that the buffaloes started morphing again, this time morphing the Visser, who he has just acquired. They take this opportunity to run for the beach, using the distraction of the Visser fighting himself but half buffalo. It's an exciting time. And to top it off, Cassie watches as the buffalo does actually defeat Visser 3. The Animorphs have been trying for 39 books, but a buffalo does it in 10 minutes. They're making it to the beach, with Hawk-Bajir in hot pursuit. They need someone to hang back and buy time, which obviously Rachel volunteers for, but Cassie wants to make sure the buffalo's okay, so she volunteers. And she demorphs in order to try and get the buffalo to mimic her, wanting it to not be half Andalite anymore. Then, once Cassie and the buffalo are both buffalo again, they wait for the Yeek troops to turn up so they can ambush them. However, the Visser is up on his feet again, and this time he's got a scary tentacle morph to use. With no other option, Cassie and her buffalo companions run to the edge of the cliff and leap off. They land pretty hard, so hard in fact that the buffalo has 2 broken legs and Cassie has a serious injury from where a branch hit her on the way down. There's only one way out. She has to show the buffalo the magic of morphing healing. So she manages to get the buffalo to become Chapman while she becomes human, so the two of them can walk out of there together. They want to get to the base where the Hawk-Bajir aren't going to be able to spot them. Cassie tries to communicate with the buffalo, and it seems like maybe it's able to a little bit, but she worries for what that means for them, because if the buffalo can tell them Yeeks who they are, they're definitely going to try and kill the buffalo. Thankfully, before she can go too far down that thought path, she finds the others. Time to regroup and talk again about how weird it is that they have a Chapman buffalo and what on earth they're going to do. But this is a tight mission, so we really need to jump ahead to the drop an anvil on the helicopter part of the plan. For safety, Cassie helps the buffalo get back to buffalo again. This is a whole series of buffalo to other things time. It's fine. And Jake picks up the blue box in his mouth, ready to deal with things. Cassie gets to wolf form, and though the buffalo is kind of confused as to why it's being left behind, she just needs to go. They're waiting for the helicopter when Cassie sees an enormous ant, and it's growing even larger, and it's turning into Cassie? She just about manages to demorph back to herself, all very confusing, also while looking at her own head, half ant head. It's horrifying. As you can imagine, an ant crawled on the cube and then crawled on Cassie. They really need to put the cube in a box. When the ant had morphed to human, it had become an individual with the freedom to choose, with free will. The human brain, with all its diversity and innate curiosity, must be completely overwhelming it. Logically, I knew that. Emotionally, I was watching myself twist and squirm and double over in agony, and I couldn't take it. "Stop it!" I shouted. The ant does not like that, and suddenly it's a battle between human Cassie and half-ant Cassie. And Ant Cassie has pincers. Thankfully, Buffalo Chapman turns up to save the day, which is good, but also Cassie has to watch herself in ant form die, which is also mildly traumatic. But it wasn't really triumph, because instead of dying, the Ant Cassie was shrinking, demorphing into a vile jumble of ant and human parts, growing tinier and tinier. "No!" I croaked. So now Cassie has to finish off the job and kill the ant. It's a lot. This whole thing is a lot. I said it was going to be. That whole heap of trauma aside, the helicopter's here again and we need to get on with the next part of Operation Anvil. Cassie looks back at the buffalo, tells it, "You are good," and then it gets shot apart by Draken beams as Cassie morphs to Osprey and flies away, because this book is determined for me to be sad about a buffalo. She shoves all those feelings aside. Operation Anvil has to go ahead. She gets above the helicopter and sees that it's firing Draken beams down at the dolphins in the water, Jake telling the others to dive deeper in order to avoid them. She's over the top of the helicopter, ready to go, and then Jake says that Tobias and Marco have both been hit. That means blood in the water, which means there could be sharks. There is no time to lose. Right there, up in the air, Cassie begins to demorph. Normally, Cassie's very good at controlling her demorphs. However, she's lost her focus somewhat because of the whole buffalo ant death situation, and so she plummets faster than she really ideally should. She's falling too fast. She might not be able to get into whale morph in time. Oh yeah, in case it wasn't clear, the anvil is a whale. They're going to hit the helicopter with a whale. To top it off, the helicopter sees her and tries to dodge out of the way, making her trajectory even more likely to fail. Just as all is lost, a seagull, not even an Animorph seagull, just a regular seagull, gets sucked into the engine of the helicopter and makes it plummet into the water. The whole thing explodes. It's not anything to do with Cassie, it's just sheer chance. They did vaguely mention this earlier as a bit of foreshadowing, but it's basically just seagull dies. The last thing I thought in the millisecond before it all went black was, after all this, all it took was one poor seagull. Yeah, that can't feel good. Cassie comes to in the ocean, being kept afloat by the other dolphins. Jake still has the cube in his dolphin mouth. It's all gonna be okay. She tells the others about the buffalo and the ant and the buffalo saving her life, and the others all start joking while Cassie thinks about whether the buffalo saved her because of buffalo identification instincts or because it had human DNA. They are 99% sure that the Helmacron sensors have been blown up, so let's wait around and see how many books it takes for them to come back. And they all get to Dolphin and they all get out of there. And that's the book. It's a very fast-paced one. It's basically just one long chase scene, but it is very enjoyable. If any of that didn't make sense, please bear in mind that when I made the notes for this and when I read the book, halfway through reading the book, I did in fact burn my hand quite severely. So the last half of this was spent eagerly typing away and then immediately plunging my hand into cold water. So bear in mind, that might be why this one felt a little bit more chaotic, but also there was a half buffalo, half man. So maybe it's just the essence of the books. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've been enjoying Animorphs August so far. We have 2 more videos to come your way. Very excited to bring them to you. We hit another 10th of the series. No, well, another 10 books. I can't remember what that's called. We are at another decade of Animorphs. Sort of. Again, I don't know. If you do want to chat about Animorphs or tell me what it means when you hit another 10 of something, I don't know, but it probably begins with deck. You can do so on the Animorphs channel of my Discord, which is linked below. You can also find my Twitter down there and my Patreon. Patrons get early access to videos like this, so if you would like to see the upcoming videos in Animorphs August, those will hopefully, fingers crossed, already be up by the time you're watching this. That's linked below as well. Thank you so much to everyone who supports the channel. I really genuinely do appreciate it so much. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. I forgot to hit record. I'm such a bingus. Oh. Where did we get to? And are using the Helmacron state. So Eric lets us.